Welcome to the News9 Plus Show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. The Supreme Court delivered a historic verdict on the 15th of February. It banned the funding of political parties through electoral bonds. But the court did not lay down another alternate scheme for political funding. In fact, it marks a return to the pre-2018 era of cash donations and corporate donations. In 1969, India banned corporate funding of political parties. In the 70s, there was an expression, briefcase politics, the black money that was stuffed in suitcases and used to fund political parties. Are we witnessing a return to the era of briefcase politics? Joining me to discuss this are Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former law secretary, Yashwant Deshmukh, founder of C-Voter, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma in the studio here. Yashwant, I want to start by asking you, electoral bonds are only a small part of the larger issue. They're like feeling the trunk of the elephant and saying, this is the elephant. The larger elephant in the room that's not been addressed is the issue of black money funding Indian elections. Tell us how much of an impact this judgment is going to have on this larger elephant in the room of black money funding Indian elections.
That's the ironical part of it, because not only it has not, this judgment is not addressing that issue, it is also taking away the good part of it, what was being tried to achieve through the electoral bonds.
Right.
I understand the reservation against the electoral bond, and I am totally in for the RTI part, the transparency part of it.
Right.
What I fail to understand that if RTI and transparency part through the court would have been achieved,
yes,
then that should have been good enough.
Right.
The court should have allowed to continue provided the transparency is there. By scrapping this thing wholesale and everything, lock, stock and barrel, it's like throwing everything away. So there is no solution to it.
Right.
The court says that the state has to be is liable for finding out a solution.
Yes.
State is the domain of the state. But
right.
Having said that, there is no solution to it. Right?
There's no solution. And Kartikeya, this thing of the judgment of the Supreme Court marks a return, you think, to the era of suitcase politics? It's back again, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, suitcase in hand.
This is a classic case where something which was touted as reform has turned into a legal issue.
Yes.
And this does not have roots in 2017. It has roots in the first amendment which was done during Atal Bihari Vajpayee's time, when under the amended Income Tax Act, the political donations were considered as contribution and you can get some relief.
Right.
Subsequently, the link between the donor and its identity was broken during Pranab Mukherjee's tenure in 2010.
Right.
And then came the push from Arun Jaitley 2017-18, and a part of his speech was pushed in the Press Information Bureau, in which he argued that this is the best way to streamline money through banks, because if you don't streamline this money through banks, this suitcase will return.
Right.
And this was a jibe which I remember when Rahul Gandhi said suit boot ki sarkar, he said UPA is suitcase ki sarkar.
Right, absolutely.
But this suitcase reminds me of that late Mr. Arun Jaitley's jibe.
Right.
So, yes, suitcase will return, but the issue to me is, what about those people who had given money under the assurance that their names will not be divulged?
Right.
So, it's an ethical issue.
Right.
Now, and then you are implementing this law retrospectively. So, what happens to those people who were covered under the law and the immunity is gone?
Right.
That's one. And secondly, there is no alternative system in place. And the return to the suitcase Raj sits on the larger issue of electoral funding, which is the mother of all corruption in this country. So how do you resolve the mother of all corruption? That's the larger issue. Right to privacy, non-application of right to privacy when it comes to contribution is one thing. But the larger issue is, how do you resolve the issue of black money in Indian politics? Or how do you resolve the money of counterfeits and currency in Indian politics, where digitization has resolved a lot of issues?
Yes. Right, absolutely. And this point that you said, suitcase ki sarkar versus suit boot ki sarkar, that's an interesting point there. Mr. Malhotra, The Supreme Court has given its verdict. It's not suggested an alternative method of political funding. The elephant in the room still remains corruption, black money, now directly funding. Earlier it was through electoral bonds, possibly a small part of it, and now it's going to be through cash, the return of Suitcase Raj. What's the way forward? I mean, given the fact that we are just months away from the general elections of 2024.
Let us appreciate one thing. The issue before the Supreme Court was only the question of legal validity of the process of electoral bonds, which was introduced into the system in 2018 by amendment in the Finance Act. Certain laws were amended and political electoral bonds concept was brought into in the name of saying that there will be transparency and probably black money coming to the politics can be stopped.
Yes.
So it has, the court has ruled only on the constitutional validity of the system which was brought into in 2018. So far as the political funding is concerned, please remember electoral bond is not the only way of funding the political parties. Parties are getting, they have money, they are getting bank interest, they have their own membership fee, they have other assets also which they can sell and earn money. They earn money from their publications also. Then there are voluntary donations which are more than 20,000 which are coming to them. So these are all known sources of income.
Yes.
So far as the unknown sources which are not disclosed to the public are concerned, I think electoral bond fall in that category because the public at large doesn't know which political party is getting how much amount from which legal entity.
Yes.
And that was the issue on which the Supreme Court has given its ruling. Now, the panelists before me have said that the Supreme Court has not given any solution. I think had the Supreme Court given any solution, then probably there would have been an allegation saying that Supreme Court is entering into a policy domain.
Yes.
So it examined only the constitutional validity of the issue, and it said that because there is no transparency and it is violative of the fundamental right to information, it is constitutionally invalid. Now, I think it is for the government to come out with a better scheme. Obviously, reverting back to the earlier system, which was prevalent before the amendment in 2018, is not the solution at all. We have to find out some other way out. One of the issues which has been discussed in the past also was that then let there be a national election fund out of which the political parties will be funded, and probably there is a ceiling on the amount what can be spent. Now, the amount which they were getting through electoral bonds, there was no limit on that. Even the loss-making company can also donate 100% of money or thousands of crores of rupees, and there were no questions asked because political party has not to pay any tax on that. And you don't know that the corporate houses which are giving, as the Supreme Court judgment itself has said, probably there may be a quid pro quo. And I think that's a very, very serious allegation made by the Supreme Court so far as the administration of this scheme is concerned. Because the electoral bond, the party, the person, any individual entity can buy the electoral bond and it can give to any party. And there is a mechanism within which it is to be encashed. And there are timelines within which this is to be issued and encashed. Unless that timelines are followed, the ultimate money they are collected in the electoral bond was to go to the Prime Minister Relief Fund.
Yes.
Now, electoral bond, as I said, it is only one of the form of collection. If you are calling it electoral bond and it is not, it is only one of the source of political funding. Political funding is much larger. Probably people have forgotten the concept that if you are talking of electoral bond, then electoral bond must be spent only on election and not on party activity.
Yes.
But what has happened in the name of electoral bonds, crores of rupees were collected and they are being spent not on election but on other political activity, even creating infrastructure for the political parties.
Yes.
So I think time has come after this Supreme Court judgment has given us an occasion to review the whole system and see that what better system can be adopted so that there is a transparency on the political funding, including the including the election funds.
Absolutely. Mr. Malhotra, thanks. Yashwant, this point that Mr. Malhotra made now, it The bonds address this issue of legitimacy, right? All the donors are registered entities and they're under a high level of regulatory scrutiny. Now you've thrown that system out. What is going to happen now? How the political party is going to fall back on that earlier thing of 20,000 cash donations, or seek other means of raising funds, as Mr. Malhotra mentioned?
Of course, all of this and much more. It will also be the wrong reporting of many things, like for example, wrong reporting of the expenditure done by the parties.
Yes.
It's not just about getting cash by the political parties. It's also about them not reporting fully what they are, expenditure they are doing.
Yes.
If they are getting by check, they would be paying by the check, and it would be duly reported what they are paying by check. So there is going to be again getting back the whole lot of the cash economy in place, which was being tried to remove. So there is merit to the argument and the judgment given by the Supreme Court. There has to be transparency. We totally get that. But there is no solution. My problem is that they have not provided any solution. It would have been better if they would have provided a solution saying that, okay, first of all, for the due transparency, let all the names be presented of those who have donated.
Yes.
The entire money should go into two different kind of pools. There should be actually ideally two different kind of bonds, national election bond and state election bonds. And that money should be collected in one single pool and distributed just like the proportional representation system, distributed to as per the vote share polled by different parties in the last election. That would have been fair thing, because that would have addressed the thing that, if entity or the business A is giving money only to party A, and party A is in power, then it goes. But if the business entity A is giving money to the central election pool, and only a part of that pool will go to party A, which is in power, based on their last election performance at the national election or the state election, that would have been a justified solution. The thing is that in the name of justice, they have just shut the entire thing down. And that go back to even darker place, ages where we don't know. Even right now, even if you see, there are more than 10,000, 12,000 crore rupees which electoral bonds have been sent. So that means a majority, 90% of the bonds are of 1 crore. That is the highest denomination. Now the thing is that the bond purchase, who has purchased how many bonds, that will be disclosed. But who has purchased which bond and that bond has been used by which political party, that correlation is not there. So even if you publish that, okay, these many bonds were purchased by these many entities and these many bonds were encashed by these political parties, there is no direct correlation of any sort, to say how they have been used by which party, So there would be a kind of transparency, but still not full transparency. Better still, it would have been much better if the Supreme Court had directed that okay, this is what has been done so far, let the full list be published and this thing put into the pool and distributed as per the last performance, and whomsoever has got more than what it is duly share is, like say for example BJP got 50% of the share, it has got 35% of the vote. So less than the 15% vote share, this much of money has to be returned to the pool. Somewhere like that. That kind of judgment would have made a much better sense and much more rightful impact. The way Supreme Court
wants. That's a great suggestion there, Yashwant and Kartikeya. This central election fund pool, it's been contemplated in the past, like many other good intention thing like the electoral bonds that came out of Mr. Jaitley's personal conviction. Do you think this is workable to create a pool where the government kind of decides?
This is something which lot of retired election commissioners have said. But there's something called incentive in democracy. You need to be incentivized to give money. No one is going to give money for just charitable reasons. There is politics of charity. Let's be honest about it. It's like there is, sometimes there's politics of spirituality. There's politics of charity. Nothing comes for free. There's no free lunch in politics. So one has to be, it's either ideology, motivation, or to suit a person or a personality or party. That is why people give money. Now there has been Indrajit committee report. Then there has been Veerappa Moili's second administrative commission.
Right.
Then there has been another report which came, I think, when Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. Some said partial funding, some said state funding.
Right.
We can't have state funding. And why should anyone create a corpus whereby a party which gets maximum number will get maximum fund?
Yeah.
I mean to say, politics is not charity.
Right.
Issue is, how do you create a balance between a function or a mean which does not erode the process of democracy, as the Supreme Court said, and victimization?
Yes.
Do you think that the people who are running us are saints? If their parties come to know that this particular gentleman has not given us money, then what happens? Is it Adani Ambani an issue which Rahul Gandhi has made?
Yes, that's very important.
Tomorrow, what prevents if after 10 years if BJP is out of power, someone will say, okay, you're Adani Ambani.
Yes.
Which means that again we are going to go back to the politics of 60s and 40s.
Right.
So I think lot more needs to go into it. Effort of late Arun Jaitley, since I was part of those off-record briefings, and the long conversation he would try to educate a lot of young journalists like me was, you need to create a system. Some system needs to be in place, good or bad. That is why if you look at the last line of the press release, he says there has to be some system, good or bad. You need to channelize this money. So now we again, it's like a full circle.
Right, we've come full circle. And in fact, when you said Mr. Jaitley's well-intentioned move to streamline this whole thing of electoral funding, I was reminded of the late Manohar Parrikar. What he had actually proposed about this corruption in defence deals. He said that let agents register themselves and do legitimate business. Represent arms companies and lobby for them. They asked arms agents to lobby, and arms agents said, we are not going to register ourselves. Absolutely not.
It's like that. The purists would say, "Arey bhai, this is rerouting of black money." When the window was opened by Chidambaram, and I think when Arun Jaitley, I think in the first tenure as the finance minister, people said, "Ye to aap black ka white kare," but at least it's coming back into the system.
It's coming back into the system. There is some kind of regulatory
which came after 1970s was the money was out of the system. Money needs to. Today, tell me one thing. A lot of people made fun of demonetization. I have stopped carrying my wallet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm really telling you, I've stopped carrying my wallet. Do you remember going to Pan ki
Your phone is your wallet.
Huh?
You got your wallet right there.
Dukaan, he would give you 5 toffees. Sorry, change nahi hai. Has anyone given you that? I think, we really need to create a committee of experts, all party consensus for electoral reforms, because the biggest issue of corruption is from elections. Tell me, why do the best of mine, Sandeep, they try to open these companies right before elections, policy making, or survey companies, or the mood of the nation. Why do they crop up? Have you ever thought of that? Why do so many? It's money which is circulating around.
Money. In fact, Kartikeya, since you mentioned this, the Association for Democratic Reforms is one of the NGOs that petitioned the Supreme Court for scrapping the electoral bonds. And earlier in the day, Justin Thomas, my colleague, spoke with Jagdeep Chokar of the ADR. Let's listen into their conversation.
Well, we will go about it the same way as we were doing before 2017. I mean, let me clarify that the electoral bond scheme did not remove any illegal money from the electoral system. It only provided a cloak or a legal cloak to bring illegal money into the electoral system, which gave an unfair advantage to the ruling party and which deprived voters of their fundamental right to find out where do political parties get their money from. And it is for these two primary reasons that the Supreme Court struck it down. So we are back to where we were in 2017. The system in 2017 or before 2017 was not great at all. It had many infirmities, which it will still have. So we have not lost anything. What we have gained is that the playing field of electoral politics had been made even for all political parties, and citizens' right to know where do political parties get their money from has been restored. This is all that has been done. the money that political parties were getting through electoral bonds was a very small fraction of the total amount of money that they get. So nothing is going to change. There is only one solution, which is that all donations to political parties be made through digital means. And the rationale for this is that when demonetization was done in the country, it was said that we are moving towards a cashless economy and towards a digital economy. And citizens were told that even if you make a payment of 10 rupees to a rickshaw puller or to a vegetable vendor, you should do it digitally. And if we can pay 10 rupees to a rickshaw wala or a vegetable vendor through Paytm or another UPI based application, why can't political parties get all their funding through UPI? Why do political parties need a 2,000 cash window or a 20,000 unaccounted cash window? All donations to political parties should be made digitally based, UPI based electronic transfers. That is the only way we can have transparency and we can have an electoral system which is free of the maladies of under the table transactions, whether they are use the euphemism electoral bond, where huge amounts of money are paid to political parties for quid pro quo. And these quid pro quos for the appropriate development of the country need to be brought out in the open. Citizens should be able to make an assessment about every policy and action of the government, whether it was being done in national interest or the interest of the people, or in the interest of some particular corporate which gained by that particular action. And under the euphemism of electoral bonds, unaccounted money was paid by that corporate to a particular political party.
Use UPI payments for election funding. I mean, that's one of the suggestions, Kartikeya. I want to ask Mr. Malhotra, how practical is this suggestion that Mr. Chokar makes, that you need to have UPI payments, for election funding of political parties? As Kartikeya was saying, his phone is today his wallet. Indeed,
yes,
it is for most of us. Is this practical?
I think you are raising a very valid question, and it is one of the mode through which the election funding or the political funding can be done, no doubt about it.
Right.
But I think Yashwant and Kartikeya both mentioned about the alternate funding processes also. As economic reform is an ongoing process,
yes,
similarly, electoral reform is also an ongoing process.
Yes.
And for the purpose of ensuring a free and fair election, how the political party should be funded becomes very, very important. So from that point of view, I think you mentioned some of the reports were mentioned. These are only few. But you look at the reforms which have been brought in the past from 1950 onward, amending the Representation of People Act, or the instructions issued by the Election Commission from time to time in exercise of power under Article 324 of the Constitution of India, the power which is given to the end for ensuring free and fair election. They fall within the domain of because Election Commission, not because it is specifically written in the Constitution, but because it is the responsibility of the Election Commission to ensure free and fair election. Similarly, in case the electoral reform has to come, there has to be a strong willpower of the political parties. And let me tell you, based on my experience as a student of law, having worked in the law ministry, I find all the electoral reforms which have come so far have come either through the Election Commission or through the judgments of the Supreme Court, and not because of the will of the political parties.
Right.
So if we are looking for one of the suggestions which was given, probably, I think Mr. Yashwant made that suggestion, that the Supreme Court has also laid down that in case the process of electoral bond is unconstitutional, then what should be followed? I think had the Supreme Court given that kind of direction, probably the Supreme Court judgment would have been criticized on the ground that it is entering into a political domain.
Right.
Now it is therefore for the government to come out with the alternative scheme, and if for that alternative scheme, like for one nation, one election, The government has constituted a high-level committee.
Right,
Why don't
right.
you constitute a high-level committee and ask them to come with some recommendation within 2 months, 3 months time, which government consider, and in consultation with all other political parties, the funding can be structured in such a way so that the black money doesn't come in, cash transactions are stopped, and the instrument like UPI and all that can be used for payment.
In fact, I'm going to ask Yashwant this point that both the panelists mentioned, that using UPI to pay for political parties. I mean, that's one of the biggest successes of this government. Why not transfer that to the electoral arena as well? Like Swiggy, Zomato, and now political parties, you can pay them through your phone.
Well, of course, but that is the micro donation part of it. I mean, I'm sure there would be a great muscle power to it, given the population that we have, given the kind of support with the political parties we have. But at the same time, we have to understand the kind of expenditure that elections are witnessing in India, not just India, but everywhere. The amount that goes into that campaign and everything, for example, let me give you a very small example of what the prescribed limit of election expenditure is officially, and what they actually end up spending are two different things. And it is a global problem. That's why you have PACs in US. Because their expenditure is not counted in the political expenditure as such. So no matter what you do, there would be fine solutions available, and people will go around that. So the idea is to accept and appreciate the fact that the amount which election commission or the bodies or the poll bodies think that this is what is spent on electioneering is nowhere near even the actual amount what is being spent on the ground.
Absolutely.
So somebody has to be much more pragmatic about it, that the amount that is allowed is hardly 5% of what the amount is spent. So let's take that thing, open it up and be transparent about it. Only thing what I am saying is that I totally understand that if Supreme Court would have done it, people would have said that it's for the lawmakers.
It's getting into the policy making.
But Supreme Court could have suggested the line. And why don't you come up with a solution like this?
Right, absolutely.
Probably Supreme Court can always suggest something. It's not just about giving
closing comments. Thanks, Yashwant. Closing comments, Kartikeya, on this.
I would. A lot of people I spoke. Some said, this is a case of judicial overreach. I don't want to get into that, but you see, the only point I would try to make is that the beauty of Indian democracy is that you don't need to be rich to win elections. You have had people in this country like Manik Rao Gavit who were MPs for 7 times, and I've seen that gentleman in UPA 1 and 2. He would come by an old ambassador. You had people who had won elections and their basic income is not more than 50,000. It's not like American democracy. My biggest worry as a journalist is Americanization of Indian democracy. If you don't have 1 billion, 2 billion in the kitty, you don't get to fight. You can't fight elections.
Elections becoming a rich man's game. That's an important point. Kartikeya, we're totally out of time on this segment, but thanks very much. State funding of elections, UPI, some of the very, very innovative methods of funding Indian elections suggested by our panelists. Mr. P.K. Malhotra, Yashwant Deshmukh, thank you very much for joining us on this segment of the return to the Suitcase Raj. The State Commission of Maharashtra for Backward Class has submitted a report to Chief Minister Eknath Shinde on the social status and backwardness of the Maratha community. Now, on the 20th of February, there will be a special session of the State Assembly to pass a law for a quota for Marathas. This is meant to address an agitation for reservation for the Maratha community, which is spearheaded by Manoj Jarange Patil. Now, Patil has been on a fast for the last week to press for reservations. Joining me to discuss this new turn in the Mahakota war are Haribhau Rathod, former Member of Parliament, Jayant Mayankar, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma in the studio. Mr. Rathod, the MSCBC report has been submitted to the government. Do you think the state government is finally going to agree to a separate quota for Marathas as distinct from OBCs, other backward classes?
Actually, this issue is a very complicated issue. Even though I am trying to explain the issue, since the Backward Class Commission has submitted its report to the government, but the government thinking to give a separate reservation to the Maratha.
Right.
I don't think that there is a separate reservation. There is only the three type of reservation.
Yeah.
One is scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and another is the OBC.
OBC.
If they are if they are tried to give a separate reservation, then again it is challenged in the Supreme Court, because the two time already challenged this
Yes.
during 2016 and another one 2018. Both times they are challenged, and it was not finally success by the government, not the government, not the Maratha.
Absolutely. Kartikeya, difficult spot that the government in Maharashtra is that you're looking at two very significant, very powerful communities, the Maratha community, which wants to get into the OBC bracket for reservations.
I think, the entire country is in a spot. I would say, the whole Maratha issue is in the forefront because the pitch is higher.
Right.
But, this is also representation of two things. One, that substantially because of the implementation of reservation post 1952, sociologically two things have happened. The first, that the social mobility, which was historically seen, and this is like a pure sociological point of view, that every caste would, over a period of time, would portray itself as an upper caste after some point of time.
Caste mobility, upwards.
The upward mobility.
And now they all want to go down, backwards.
Now the issue is that there's a reverse trend, because now you want to be part of the scheduled list. If you look at the coronation ceremony of Chhatrapati Shivaji, it was about Hindavi Swaraj.
Yes.
You had priests from Banaras, Ban Bhatt, and everyone participating into it. And he was a Chakravarti.
Yes.
So, it was about social mobility. So, life under modernity, or I would say modern nation states, where you are classified and codified, something different has happened to the caste. So, caste is not functioning on the principle of purity and, as you said, upward mobility.
Right.
Caste is functioning on the principle of horizontal strength and reservation, which you are getting.
Right.
A very famous 1960s and early 70s, which Rahul Gandhi tried to use, Sasopa statement, 100 में से 60 पिछड़े पावे, utne 60. Basically, it was saying that this is a world of the backward politics.
Right.
So now, if you're saying that the backward politics is the pivot of Indian democracy, then everyone wants a quota.
Yeah, everyone wants a quota. There's possible ripple effect through other states.
And Kanchi Ram used to say, he said, this is pen, but I want to make it like this.
Right.
So people would say, why? Because he said, like this, we are more in number.
Ah, okay.
But like this, we are here.
Right.
But if you make it like this, we are bigger.
Right.
That Kanchi Ram used to tell this to journalists in 80s.
Right, right. And
so people who are pushing the caste issues are those who do not have political background.
Right.
Look at the Patidar Andolan of Gujarat.
Exactly.
Who was Hardik Patel?
Hardik Patel was a nobody.
Who was Jignesh?
Exactly. Yes.
Nobody.
Nobody's.
Who is Jarange technically?
Yeah.
No one.
Yes.
What fueled Jat mobilization for BJP? A riot.
Right.
There was no big mobilization.
Yes.
When the Gujar and Meena Andolan rocked this country 10 years ago, who was fueling it? No politician was fueling it.
Kirori Lal Bansla.
Civil society actors
Yes.
or unknown people like Jarange, which means that somehow there is also a disconnect when it comes to politics of reservation and larger electoral issues.
Yes.
These are complex issues. So I think when this disconnect happens, it means that these players are independent of the local MLAs and MPs.
Yes.
It is for this reason, Jarange is not a huge hero.
No.
But the call he has made makes lakhs of people go.
Absolutely.
Or for example, Anna Hazare's anti-corruption campaign.
Yes.
I mean to say, he was neither a caste leader who is talking about Anna Hazare now, no one. But he marshaled thousands of people. So I think there is an inner churn in our democracy.
Yes.
So some churn is for anti-corruption drive. There is some churn for community. But I think the larger issue is that our population has not been absorbed by private industry as much as they could have, and state has not been able to convince them that, boss, even if you're part of this reservation list, it doesn't make a difference. You aren't going to get jobs, and there is no consensus on creamy layer.
Right.
Rotation.
Absolutely. Jayant, this point that Kartikeya made about leaders coming out of nowhere literally and, capturing the, popular imagination among communities, like, you had in the Patidar agitation with Hardik Patel, and now with the Maratha agitation, you have Manoj Jarange Patil. Just decipher for us, how is it that leaders like this are managed to come out of nowhere, capture and mobilize numbers on a scale that we haven't seen with any other politician in recent past?
Given the names from Anna Hazare to Hardik to Manoj Jarange, let me boldly put, I know that there will be some reservations about this, but everywhere the BJP hand you could see in behind such agitations.
Yes.
It is always allegation that Anna Hazare was the protege of BJP, and now where is Anna Hazare when so many problems are occurring?
Right.
Hardik, where he ended after he ended with BJP.
Yes, yes, he was assimilated.
Yes. Now let me tell you, Jarange Patil, is he someone like Sharad Pawar or any Maratha scion of Kolhapur or Satara? No, he is not. He is an ordinary farmer or maybe from the Marathwada region.
Yes.
I am of the firm view that he is another, handpicked by BJP just to divide the politically powerful nearly 32% Maratha community,
right,
which is well divided between Sharad Pawar and Congress.
Right.
So if on the basis of this, we are offering you reservation.
Yes.
The BJP will say that we are offering, Devendra Fadnavis will say, look, your Maratha rulers, 16 Maratha chief ministers have now not given you, but I am giving you, and with this, he may try to yield some 5 to 10% Maratha votes,
right,
to concretize the party's position in Maharashtra,
right,
which despite Ashok Chauhan leaving, still there is a whisper that the three-party alliance is way ahead of BJP.
Yes.
And they are trying, please understand, there was a talk of Colonel Baisla, there was a talk of Jat. The BJP proteges have pointedly gone in those regions where one particular community, which is farmers, which is in farming, Jat again in farming, Colonel Baisla was raising the same issue. And even Marathas are only in farming. They are trying to divide this farming community. The moment they will be, because BJP, I can't rate as a rural party. BJP is basically
it's an urban party.
party.
Especially in Maharashtra.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you, sir. But I think BJP has broken that image. Long time ago, in 1980s, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was campaigning in Punjab, and his PCC and his president said, BJP president, sir, look at the wall, sir. We have painted the town saffron. BJP के सदस्य बनिए, and Vajpayee in his cryptic humor said, यही तो दिक्कत है. So I think, I think
right,
BJP has come a long way from Baniye or come a long way from urban
Brahman
party.
Baniya, urban party.
If you look at the Lok Sabha elections of 2014 and 19, scheduled tribe and scheduled caste list,
right,
rural areas, they have swept all the seats.
Right.
So I don't think BJP is an urban party. Yes, it might be more forceful in urban areas.
Right.
Today BJP is truly a national party.
Right.
We have to acknowledge that.
It's taken the space of the Congress.
Yes, it has taken the space of the Congress very, very quickly. ठीक है, साम दाम धन बेट किया, तोड़ा जोड़ा. But didn't Indira Gandhi do that in 1967? Broke all the Sanyukt Sarkars.
Right.
Didn't Rajiv Gandhi do that? Didn't allow N.T. Rama Rao to
I want to bring in
take
Mr.
oath?
Rathod. Mr. Rathod, this we were talking about Manoj Jarange Patil. What becomes of him? Would he be assimilated into one of the mainstream parties like Hardik Patel was after?
I don't think any political party behind Jarange, because before 4-1, there was an incident that agitation, during the agitation, lathi charge and all these things,
right,
the police attack. So that was the result behind the Jarange party. Right. Nobody, I don't think any BJP or Sharad Pawar behind the...
No political party is behind Jarange party.
No. Coincidentally, that incident has occurred in this Antarvalli in Jalna district. So, suddenly he take, he has the support from the all bottom of the this one Marathas, and because during a day reservation is very important. This one since we have seen in the Jat allegation, then Jat this Patidar Andolan, but they were well qualified the leader. Now the Jarangi party, that much not he is qualified.
He's an unknown.
His demand is unknown. So daily his demand is increasing and not a constitutional one. So even the government has taken decision unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. If they give the separate reservation in coming session, then definitely the reservation will be challenged.
Reservation will be challenged, Kartikeya. I think we are back to square one, 2016, 2018 and now 2024.
You see, it's
no
like,
separate
it's like this.
possible.
The courts will get in, but see, the problem is not that. The problem is that law and order issue becomes really a huge headache for the government, state governments. And it is for this reason you find Eknath Shinde going here and other cabinet minister going there. Larger issue is that we do not have political consensus on the issues of reservation. Anyway, these reservations were not supposed to be there forever. So we need to have consensus on social policies. That is why I say that these issues cannot be episodically or in a piecemeal dealt. You need to have a larger, longer vision. 50 years, 40 years, 60 years. I am not saying emulate China's example. I mean to say, but then you need to have some goals. You need to have some goals, and I think when Prime Minister talks about New India and when he's talking about these issues, I think if he gets his third term, these are the hard issues I'm sure he's going to take up. Not even this, but I'm sure even NJAC.
Yeah, NJAC as well. That's for the third term, if there is one indeed. And Jayant, you have a comment to make.
Yeah, it is
very
because,
quickly,
you know,
just 30 seconds. We're at the end of our...
because I don't think any government is least interested in having consensus. What BJP actually wants, let there be chaos in the bigger community. The powerful community, the more it will be divided, the more it will benefit them in the elections. And it's very simple. We want third term at any cost.
Thank you.
And
Thank
that
you,
is
Mr.
what
Venkar.
everything
Thank
is
you.
happening.
Yes, I get your point. So, Maharashtra quota war continues with a new turn. Manoj Jarangi Patil is the man of the moment, but how long he will continue is in question. And I'd like to thank my panelists, Mr. Haribhai Rathod, Jayant Mainkar, and my colleague Kartikeya Sharma. That's the story that we'll be tracking. West Asia is the flavor of the season. Prime Minister Modi just returned from a 2-day state visit of UAE and Qatar. My colleague Ashish Sharma was at the World Book Fair here in New Delhi. We leave you with this report from the World Book Fair and the West Asian countries participating. Thank you for watching.
40 countries, 1,000 multilingual book stalls, 1.25 lakh people, one destination. The New Delhi World Book Fair 2024.
We were expecting to have a lot of attention being given to the guest of honor, but we were amazed by the number of crowd and traffic that is interested in checking out the Saudi pavilion and what it's got to offer. We're very delighted, very happy. I think we had a great turnout on the number of visitors. A lot of people came to the pavilion, enjoyed what the pavilion has to offer. I believe we achieved the goal of the pavilion is by exiting the pavilion, you learned a new thing about Saudi Arabia. You have more good expressions of Saudi Arabia, and you discover the diversity of the Saudi Arabian culture. One of the major things that we're coming to do here in this version is to promote this business between Saudi and Indian publishers. I've met with the Bookseller Association, I've met with the Publisher Association. I think we have promising work to do between New Delhi and New Delhi World Book Fair and Riyadh International Book Fair, and between the Indian Publisher Association and Saudi Publisher Association to start, or not start, but to enhance and to increase the number of titles that are being done between Saudi and Indian publishers and authors.
Publishing industry is very strong in India. I think it is the second largest English publishing country in the world. And UAE is comparatively a small country. We don't have a lot of publishers in that country, but the people who are living there, they are good readers. So that is where we are focusing more. The school children, they started reading. You know, in Sharjah, in every house, there is a library now.
First of all, let me thank the government of India and the Ministry of Education and also NBT for paving the way for us to participate here and holding this special ceremony. I think this event is one of the most important cultural events in India that is annually being held here. Here they facilitate us everything, and there is a very good facility for those who are invited and those publishers that love this kind of things, because you know publishers are loving to manifest what they are doing during year. The book fair, the New Delhi book fair, is comparable to international Tehran book fair in terms of population, in terms of the huge number that come to this book fair, and in terms of the amount of publishers that are taking part.